All right, we are recording. So welcome everybody to our LiveFULLy Zoom. And tonight I am super excited to be in Stark as our call leader. And just a little bit of background before I turn it over. And David, I am going to make you host of the meeting.
Okay.
If you need to, share screen or whatever you need to do, you'll have full
Okay.
right of the call. And so just a little bit of background, David and I met at the Follow Your Bliss retreat in St. George, Utah, probably like a year and a half ago.
Actually, last April. Last April.
So a year ago.
A year ago now, yeah.
And I just kind of plopped down and sat next to him at lunch. And, we just kind of started chatting and getting to know each other's stories. And, he just has such an inspiring, incredible story that I'm super excited for him to share on this call. And so in the course of this conversation, I learned that, he lost a significant amount of weight with isagenix and chose not to have bariatric surgery, where I actually did have bariatric surgery back in 2010, but had gained about half of it back. And so I had an isagenix story where isagenix helped me lose the weight again, but David actually chose the route to try good nutrition first. And so I'm like, had I known about isagenix, when I had surgery, I probably would have made that choice too. But regardless, we just had a great chat and just formed a good relationship there and started talking about the need for having to modify an isagenix system, whether it's a 30-day pack or whatever you start with. There are some, really specific things to consider when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to mindset. So Follow Your Bliss really is very focused on kind of changing your thoughts and changing your mindset. And obviously with severe obesity, that is an absolute necessity in order to be, successful and keep weight off. And so being able to really focus on what those things are and go through some personal development is something that David and I both, we both, kind of learned and we're practicing together and just, continued to stay in touch. And so then, after some time had passed, I was just really compelled to reach out to him when, LiveFULLy had been on my mind and starting the support group and really coupling, mindset learning with the nutritional learning as well. And he was completely on board. And so we've had, many conversations about just really reaching this demographic of people and supporting and helping people who are dealing with compulsive overeating and severe obesity to be able to bring this amazing nutrition, but also, be able to do some coaching on how things are a little bit different and what we've learned along the way on our journey. So David is actually lives in Santa Clarita, California, and has a beautiful, amazing wife, Kelly, that he chats about all the time. So I've not been able to meet Kelly in person, but I'm sure she's incredible. And so I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to you. I know that, you said that you're going to give us a little bit about your story and kind of your why and what keeps you involved, with isagenix. And I'm just excited to hear anything that you have to tell us tonight. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and I'm going to make you the host of the meeting.
Okay.
I'll mute myself out.
Okay, cool. Well, Chris, thank you for, inspiring us to do this. My journey really starts out as a story. And I know that my story wouldn't be affected unless I heard Jeff and Debbie Beebe's story. And I got to start there because they're the ones that actually led me to believe that, look, I could do this, get healthy. And it started the end of December 2013. I was 403 pounds going into the new year. And I said, there's no way I'm going to start this new year 400. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna hit it hard and just work out. And I lost a total of about, what was it, 6 pounds between then and the beginning of the year. So I started the new year at 397. And I felt like it, man, I did what I needed to do. I got to the beginning of the year, and now I'm going to really start it, right? And so I went to Costco, Walmart. I was going to say Home Depot, but I went to GNC, and I picked up about $600 worth of food. And I went and I tried to do the system of my own choosing, meal replacements, bars, vitamins. And so from January of that year to August, I was getting ready for a wedding, my brother's wedding, and I wanted to become healthy. In fact, he had asked me to lose over 100 pounds earlier or later in that 2013 year. And I actually was a little upset that he even asked me because, well, I want you to lose 100 pounds because I want you to look healthy. But ultimately, he was embarrassed, I'm going to be taking pictures and all that. And I knew he loved me, but I wasn't very happy that he would even ask me to do that. But I knew that it was a sign that I needed to do something because I have 2 amazing daughters that I want to live for, and they're part of my why. But ultimately, I knew that I needed to get my life together. And, my story starts out with Isagenix, August 2014. I remember because it was the day that Robin Williams passed away, is the day that I started Isagenix. And I thought to myself, life has a pretty amazing way of cycling us through, right? And, as one person leaves, somebody comes into this world. And as soon as I die to myself, a new Dave takes over. And that's really what Isagenix has been for me, has been a rebirth. Shortly thereafter, I met Wendy. We met at her yoga studio for a meeting that I felt very awkward to be at. First of all, I was never in a yoga studio, and number two, I wasn't into much personal development. And I went into this yoga studio thinking, oh, what am I getting myself into? I know that Jeff and Debbie have invited me, but I don't really want to go. But I know that I needed to go because I needed to change my head. Because you can't get to 397 and 400 without having some messed up thinking. So I met with Wendy, and I was impressed with the fact that I'm surrounded by some amazing people. And I said, man, why aren't I using this network more? And that's really kind of where my story started in a way, because I realized that with good thinking, I could create a good story. And it was the story that was limiting me from creating my ultimate dream, which is to have a healthy lifestyle, have a healthy family, and to have a healthy business that is not dependent upon the economy. And I know that I'm on that path now. And my journey is my story. My journey is my vision. My journey is my why. My journey is my leveraged business plan that I now get to share with anybody that crosses my path that I feel so inclined to share. And part of my story, or part of my kind of facilitating today, was just how important my story is, how important your story is, because all of our stories bring us here. And if Jeff wasn't very eager to share his story, and Debbie wasn't very eager to share her story to Jeff, guess what? I wouldn't be here. I probably wouldn't even be Facebook friends with them. Okay, so I know that it took their story to get to my story, and it's going to take my story to get to other people's stories. So we have to keep telling our stories and not stop ever, because everybody deserves to be healthy. One of the things I heard today Jeff talk about on the 9:30 call was all of his friends deserve to be healthy. And I thought about that, right? Do we really, really honor that? If we did, wouldn't we be talking to every single person possible? And it makes me think about that. I talk to my close friends about it quite a bit. I talk to my family about it quite a bit. But ultimately, I don't talk to everybody as passionately as I know I should. And part of that is because of my story. My story limits me as well. So I wanted to just kind of go through some of that a little bit. I wanted to share my story. I wanted to share my why. I wanted to share my vision with you. And I'm not necessarily going to share my leverage business plan because we're all in the same business together to a certain extent. But I do feel that Isogenics gives me that vehicle to be able to share my story and then also be able to help somebody make an impact. Hello. Let's see here. There we go. Hello. We're back. So before I start, I wanted to read you guys a quote I heard today, or I saw today on my email. We are all born with innate gifts that are meant to be shared as we serve one another. Why not give people an opportunity to share? Helping others and being a part of a community not only increases your sense of belonging, it also increases your security. People are more willing to look out for each other and share resources, which reduces cost and increases fulfillment. And then the next part of that is whatever we possess becomes a double value when we have the opportunity of sharing it with others. That right there, double value. I really honestly believe that my story, if I were just to talk about how I went to Costco or GNC and Walmart and shared that story, I don't think I'd have double value. But because this is Isogenics and somebody can become financially free as well as physically free, I believe this truly becomes a double value. And it's because of this leveraged opportunity that all of us are in that we're actually participating in is impacting the world. And that goes to my vision, right? So my vision is to impact people everywhere I go, all over, with sharing my story of restoration and being an example of physical and financial freedom by using high vibrational nutrition. And I kind of, if you look at high vibrational nutrition, you take the H, the V, and the N, that stands for heaven on earth, right? And isn't really living fully? Aren't we really all trying to live fully to be really heaven on earth to people? And it makes me think about that, right? You know, when I'm stuck in my, I can't lose this, or I'm not releasing it, or I'm not where I want to be, I'm exactly where I need to be. Gratitude needs to roll over me. And I look back at that vision and I go, you know what? I'm right where I need to be, right? Am I impacting people? Yes. Am I restoring my life? Yes. Am I being an example, physical and financial? Yes. So my vision is true. None of that would be true had I not said yes to Isogenics. My why is to restore my health, period. I can't restore my health. I can't want anybody to restore their health unless I take my health serious. My why is to build a business helping other people do the same thing, restore their health, build this unlimited potential residual business that leverages our health and turns our health into wealth. Man, I sell products for a living, but with Isogenics, I get to sell dreams. And I know that it's huge because people that are stuck overeating, undereating, they aren't dreaming, right? They're not dreaming at all. I was thinking about this too. I'm in the fat mining business, right? So we all want to talk about mining for gold. I'm a fat miner. So I want to show people how to mine their fat into wealth. And at some point, you know, you guys have seen those diamonds, those diamond shirts, whatever and they're out there, the diamond mining shirts. But I'm going to have a shirt that says "Fat to Cash." Ask me how. Ask me why. By restoring my health, it will allow me to live an extraordinary life with my wife, Kelly, my daughters, Jordan and Caitlin. And I am focused on my why so that Kelly can retire herself within the next 24 to 36 months. I'm focused on my why because I have the desire and the ability to walk my girls down the aisle someday. It's one of my big dreams. 2 young daughters, and my desire is to see them walk down the aisle and me have their arm. But at 403 pounds, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, I just didn't think that was even going to happen. In fact, it wasn't even on my radar. In fact, I didn't even know that I could do it. So I went through a little bit of my story, went through my vision, went through my why, and then obviously my leveraged business plan, right? We all know that, so I'm not going to necessarily talk about that, but I am going to talk about how I'm integrating my nutrition into my rep agency. Because I think that for me, that's my angle to help build America and nourish America. For the last, 18 years, I've been building America with my constructions, industrial supplies. And I've realized that a lot of these men and women that are behind the counter or driving these trucks or are buying or are buyers or are part of the corporate plan are unhealthy. And I get to bring them health through nutrition. And I get to be the example in front of them. And it's really amazing. So I get to integrate isogenics into my business. And it's pretty nice because it's something new. I heard Debbie talk about this week, talk about things that you want to be like, not, or who you are becoming. And so many of us talk about how limited we are. I can't, I just shouldn't, or I don't know how. I hear I don't know how all day long. And I've learned from Jeffrey Combs, well, if you did know how, what would you do? And so that stops that thinking process. Kelly and I have, when we do hear those words coming from either one of us, we stop ourselves and we say, look at what word can we use to replace I don't know? Because I don't know does lock you down. I don't know. Where do you want to go to dinner? I don't know. Where do you want to go to dinner? I don't know. Well, I'll just decide. Well, then it's like decisions, right? Decisions. Decisions are key. Who are we going to talk to? Who are we going to spend our time with? Who are we going to invest into? Decisions. Best decision I've made so far, besides coming to know the Lord, saying yes to marrying Kelly, or having Kelly say yes to me, is saying yes to isogenics. It has given me the vehicles, the keys to my life. With that being said, I wanted to open up a little bit of questions and answers. Does anybody have any questions upon my story at all? And or do you guys have anything to add to how important your story is to share and impact this world?
Hey, I do. David, can you give a little bit of background on kind of how you came across Follow Your Bliss and like what role has personal development played in your success? I mean, with your ability to, it's 108 or yeah, I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
it's like give or take, but I mean, like that is just phenomenal. And having, like I said, having gone through gastric bypass, it's like it was a major surgery, but the way, with your duodenum being bypassed, like you don't absorb calories, the weight comes off like that, right? It's very different than, going the nutrition route and just exercising, working out, and changing your thoughts to actually change your patterns, like your behavior patterns, your eating patterns. Obviously the help of Isogenics nutrition is amazing, but like just I think it would be really helpful for the group just to know, when you made that decision, how big of a deal was that for you, that personal development?
I would say the first 90 days, I didn't know anything about personal development. In fact, I wasn't even connected. I was disconnected. In fact, I was pissed off, to be honest with you, because I didn't know that I needed to add that in. I kind of disconnected. I told Deb and Jeff, look, I really don't want to do this business thing. I'm not really all that interested in any of this. I've got way too much life going on. But then I met up with Wendy at her studio. And that right there, that kind of turned it for me. Because I knew that there was something else out there. At that same meeting, I met Lenny. And then I heard shortly thereafter the calls in the morning. And I'm like, oh my God, there's these calls in the morning. They set my mindset right for the entire day. And then I started to become focused on, I got to hear these calls. I got to hear these calls. And then I had Kelly get on these calls so that we could talk about these calls at the end of our day, not about the gossip of work.
So
and that's when I really started.
Just to let everybody know, these calls that we're talking about, it's
Yes.
Evans has a daily call that's every morning at, well, it's 11:30.
8:30 Pacific, 9:30 Central.
Yeah. So
11:30.
If anybody, is listening to this call that doesn't already join in on these calls, it's open to anybody. And if you're listening to this as a recording, please jot that down as a call that, you will want to attend. Okay. So I just wanted to put that out there in case you know who Lenny was or what this call was.
Definitely. And then, so that was the weekly calls at 8:30. Then when their 9:30 calls is playing with the pros, which is kind of more for the business piece. But I still got encouragement from that. And it was through those calls that I heard about bliss. And it was because of hearing it enough and hearing how it has changed people's lives. And then also to know that Wendy was going too, because I knew a couple people. So it was actually, I felt comfortable. It felt comfortable enough to go, but I felt awkward going, if that makes sense, because it was out of my comfort zone. And I went, I didn't know what to expect. But what I expected was just to be open and to learn and to connect with people that are on the same journey. And it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. It was one of the events that I chose to go to last year, and it will be an event that I go to this year. I wanted to send my wife last year for the second one, and I will work on doing that. But I believe that for me, I want to make it a yearly thing, because I know that being around people, these people edify me and I edify them, and we build these relationships that are incredible, Chris, like the one that we have. It's going to last a lifetime, and the invisible impact that bliss had on my life, I can't tell you. Okay. It's been amazing. And my relationship to the people within my own group that I get to share this information with after is powerful. I get to bring home good information to my team, to my family, and share that with them. And it's an ongoing venture. It's an everyday deal. And so that's where the bliss started. And then from that point, I set my vision. I set my story. I actually, during the bliss retreat, is when I actually started to write my story out on a daily basis, write my vision out on a daily basis, and write my why out on a daily basis, and my business plan on a daily basis, so that I know if I'm journaling it and I'm writing about it, then I know that it's going to come out the perfect. I won't have to keep on thinking about it. I just keep on writing it and journaling it. So does that answer your question, Chris? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. I just, I know that that's been a big part of your life and your journey. And so I thought it would be helpful for other people that might just be getting started. Maybe they're where you are now, where you were when you first got started. And, it's one thing just to, start a new plan and, find a way to kind of change your habits, when it comes to eating. But I think that whole mindset thing is something that you and I both found to be really inspiring and life-changing, to kind of allow your thoughts to be changed and learn how to do that, because it's spent a lot of years doing things the same way, right? That put us in a
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
unhealthy and not good for us. And so yeah, thank you.
You bet. Go ahead, Wendy.
I just want to say how impressed I am by you through all the time that from when I first met you, and I've said this on other calls, but I'd like to say it on this one, that you have impressed me since day one. And I had no clue that you were even remotely uncomfortable that first night or at any of the events that I've seen you at and participated with you. So I've been impressed with your mindset and your personal growth and where this is at every time I see you, so either you put on a great facade or you really have your shit together. I'm just saying.
I appreciate that, Wendy. Thank you. Thank you for that. That means in most, I mean, as we all know with any addiction, right? It's, we all feel overwhelmed. We feel alone. I don't get to share a lot with a lot of people, but I do get to share my story now. And that story makes an impact. I spoke to a gentleman last Wednesday, probably 400 plus pounds. And I got to talk to him because I spoke to two other guys before him that said, oh, you need to go talk to John. And so I came in to talk to John, and John didn't even know I was coming in to talk to John. And John is diabetic. He is contemplating surgery. Told him about our group, invited him to tonight. And I want him to know that I'm doing it and I'm here for him. And I said, hey, before you go with surgery, I'd like for you to at least look at my system, because I think it will ultimately help you. And even after surgery, let's say you end up going that route, even after, you still need nutrition. You can't get around nutrition, right? I don't have to eat food, but I have to have nutrition. That is one main thing that I have learned through this whole process. No matter where I'm at, I have to have my nutrition. And I'll tell you what, if I don't have it, I am one grumpy guy. I don't have my Onyx. Kelly doesn't want to be around me. It's funny. We know when we're coming to the end of our Ionics. Okay, how close are we? I'm gonna week out. We gotta minimize this. Pull out the little powder packets. Because again, I start the process. What's the daily method of operation? Right, I have a daily method of operation when it comes to nutrition. The key with isogenics is being consistent. And, I've gained back out of the 108, I've gained back 25 of that because I wasn't consistent. And I was thinking back, I was talking to Wendy about this a few weeks ago. When did that weight start to come back on? It came back on when I stopped journaling. I wasn't consistent in journaling my thoughts down. So guess what? I started to eat from emotion, not from knowledge. So now I'm back, right? And I've got to release what I've gained, but that's okay. I'm happy to be where I'm at. I have the vehicle, right? I don't have to go, oh, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And have that pressure. I just get right back on the freeway, merge into the fast lane, and go. And that's what I love about this system, guys, is that reset anytime. Reset tomorrow, reset tonight, reset now, just by breathing, right? I didn't know how important NOx was in my life. NOx, I've never even heard. Nitric oxide. Man, the only thing, I'm just like, I was reading about it this week. Like all these things that I'm learning about breathing, nitric oxide, protein, just 2 years ago, I would have never have looked into this stuff, right? And I feel and I know that this is my future now. And this is my vision, my why, my story. And it's all wrapped up into saying yes to. And isogenic shake. So, yep, that's kind of where it's at.
We talked a little bit about just kind of eating out of emotion, and I've been going live for the past several days on this book called The Untrue Story of You, and he's really focused on that, about our thoughts and how the past, a thought actually doesn't have any power until we have assigned a feeling or emotion to it. And so when you think about, start applying it to overeating and choices that we make, we've been spending a lot of time reading about this, and then there's an exercise to do the journaling, like you were talking about, to really slow down to the point that you're really challenging the thoughts that you're having. And so it's like, oh man, and I give the example of, like, I just really want, like, if you're hungry, that's a present thought, like my body, we need to, like, satisfy this hunger. But when it goes to, I want chocolate cake, that's not a present hunger. It is the past, where you've assigned an emotion to chocolate cake that you believe is going to create some situation for you, right? And so we can undo that. It's work. But to be able to go back and say, wait a minute, like, that's not me right now saying I want chocolate cake. That was me assigning this higher power to chocolate cake. And so we can actually do that and start over. Sorry, guys. We can start over and do that with healthy things. We can do it with, shakes. We can do it with our 30-day system. We can do it with, like, man, I really feel like I want to like reassign how I feel about salad. That, like, in the past I may have been like, yeah, I don't want a salad. Like, well, maybe I do. Maybe if I really think about how good, how fresh these vegetables taste, or how, how great this, how sweet this shake is, that, like, it actually does give me the same positive feeling as the sweetness of that chocolate cake. And so just, learning that stuff, I never knew anything about that. So it was like, I didn't have that power to change my thoughts about the choices that I'm making, the behaviors, that I have, like what I do out of emotion when it comes to eating. And so I love that you mentioned that, about kind of eating out of emotion and the journaling, because I think it is so helpful to, it's hard, but like that self-correction, to really think about, why am I making this choice?
Yeah.
Right?
And to add to that is, for me, I grew up a young kid, and I was the youngest of three. And so I kind of got overlooked. My dad put a lot of effort in my oldest brother, Steve. My brother Tim, he had the seconds of that, and then there was me. And so I got to be free to do what I wanted. And with that came the responsibility of eating. So I found emotional eating as my source of, strength, really. And it became fudge. Fudge was my number one go-to. My mom would make it during the holidays, and it would become my number one go-to. I'd sneak fudge out at night. I'd, hide it early. I was 4 or 5 years old doing this. That's where I learned that skill. So I know the equation how to get to 403. I know the equation how to get down to my ideal weight. That's the beauty, right? I know. Now you just have to act. Act on that knowledge. Act on those thoughts. The quote today that I heard that really made a lot of sense, I wanted to share it with you guys. And it was on the 9:30 call. Was it? I'll share it with you. I'll find that really quick. Sorry about that. Okay, so it's harder to think your way into new action than act your way into new thoughts. And that really hit me hard today because I've been trying to think my way into new actions a lot, right? Versus getting up in the morning, putting on my shoes, working out, just getting into it right away. Don't allow any time. That's how I released 108 because I got serious about getting active. Also calling people that I don't want to call, right? I can think myself, oh, they don't want to talk to me or whatever. But really, if I just call them, guess what? That story never really is true. Every time it is false. It's harder to think your way into new action than act your way into new thoughts. And that really kind of stuck with me today throughout my day. Action is key. I'm in a business where you're only as good as your last sale. And so if I'm not constantly looking to improve my area of prospecting or customers, I'm dead in the water, right? I can't live on last week's stuff. I got to constantly be mining for new. And so that's why I really enjoy being on these calls and being part of these Zoom calls because they stretch me, they make me act, and then we take that action and go help other people impact. We're at 6:45, so that's pretty much all the time that I wanted to commit to tonight. Was there any housekeeping, Chris, that you wanted to do for next meeting?
No, not really. Like I said, I will kind of go back to doing some personal text messaging, to people to kind of continue to filter this through the groups, what our schedule is and what the link is, have that out nice and early for people. And just, I guess, to reiterate that people don't have to be involved with Isogenics from a product or a business perspective to be on this call. So, I've had some calls with people recently that I've invited, just check it out, see what you think. Like you're going to hear that because we obviously have people with those success stories, but just urging everybody to continue to participate and spread the word. But I'm super grateful for you and for our paths crossing because you're always there. You're always plugging away the inspiration in the group. I'm grateful for you, for your posting and that's what it's about is just, the consistency and sticking with it. So I'm so glad
Thank you,
that
Chris.
and so glad that you've been on board, from the beginning to be a part of this and
Thank you.
and keep it moving. So thank you so much for your story and does anybody else have anything that they want to chat about or weigh in on before we wrap up?
Just want to say thank you, David, for
Thank you.
sharing your story. And I had several takeaways. I really liked where you said that, just your journey is your why. That gave me some things to think about. So just thank you for your vulnerability and just sharing because it is.
Thank you.
Just thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. Well, thank you all for dialing in, and we're off next week. Just a reminder to, if you're able to be online and in the LiveFULLy group, I'm going live every morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. So I know that that's early for you West Coasters. But they obviously stay in the group so you can go back and take a listen, but really continuing with this mindset and challenging our thoughts, on how do we start to do things differently so that we can develop new habits and kind of get out of these habits and the behaviors that come along with our habits that are formed from the past. And so hopefully that's helpful for people. And And that's all. So I hope everybody has a great night. Thank you again for dialing in, and I love you guys.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, David.
Good night.
Thank you, Laura.
Great call.